Welcome to Cowboy Corner. I'm Red Steagall here in the bunkhouse with Jake and Badger and Old Dan and Leon and all the rest of the boys, and a visit from my buddy, Mr. Jimmy Reeves. Now, Jim is the executive director of the Texas division of the 4-H clubs, and he spends all of his time helping young people learn about agriculture and expand their agricultural horizons. He does a great service.
Badger.
Yep. Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing.
Well, Red, my career started out right around Fort Worth, Dallas area. Born on a ranching operation and a dairy, and all through high school. And my dad finally decided to get out of the dairy business, and just absolutely thrilled me because that was the only reason I was going to go to college, to get out of the dairy barn. From there, I went to A&M and thought I'd be a veterinarian like most young men. And we had a little skirmish going on called Vietnam about that time. And I was such an academic giant that I got a personal invitation from Lyndon Johnson to come over there and see if I could straighten it out. After I got back from the service, I finished up my schooling at Tarleton and was an ag science teacher for 3 years. After that, I took a position with the Angus Association here in Texas. Matter of fact, my office was right down the hall from you when we were in the stockyards.
Yes.
And from that point, I went into managing a ranch that was in Lampasas, and we ended up Breeder of the Year nationally for 3 years in a row, which is a special accomplishment for me, having champions. We had Denver Champion Bull. From there, I got an invitation to go to King Ranch, and I took over as CEO of the Santa Gertrudis Association. I was there for about 8 years. And then the American Brahmin Association asked me if I'd come to Houston and take over the Brahmin Association, which I did for 8 years. And then I got a call one day from A&M and asked me if I considered taking over the Texas 4-H Foundation. And I, at that time, was tired of international travel and wanted to get back into judging more livestock shows. I had just finished my tenure as president of the U.S. Beef Breeds Council and National Cattlemen's Board. And so I said, you hit me in a weak moment. I think I'd like to finish my career out working for kiddos. So this is going on my 8th year now as the director of the Texas 4-H Foundation.
Well, that's wonderful. And all those things you were involved with. I want to talk about your association now with the 4-H. But did you have youth activities in those other breed associations that prepared you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, Red, it was really, to me, something that I realized in the 38 years breed exec business is I was always prone to want to emphasize our youth work because cattle business is not unlike other business. You need to be planning for the future, not only with your cattle, but the cattlemen themselves. It's a difficult thing for a young person right now to want to go home in a cattle operation when the world tells them they need to go downtown, be a lawyer or banker, or be on the road selling some kind of a product. But I found out that the more that we're able to expose young people to livestock, the better individuals that we raise. And when I had an opportunity to take over, and I'll say that the Texas 4-H program is the largest in the United States. We're close to 600,000 young people involved. Even the ones that never go back to the farm or the rural areas have a fine appreciation for hard work, for dedication, and they really respect the people out there on the land that are making a living. And to me, that's just as important as anything else because those young people end up voters. And we have situations that hit us politically that many times are absurd to a livestock producer or someone who has already proven is a steward of this land. They're the ones that depend more on the welfare of the soil and the husbandry part than anyone else. So they're certainly taking a bad rap if anybody thinks that a producer out there in farming or ranching is doing something to hurt the environment because they depend on it for their total livelihood.
Now, let's talk a little bit tell us about the history of the 4-H, how it got started.
It started 104 years ago up here in Jack County when we had a county agent that was having a little problem. Texas A&M developed some hybrid corns, and they went as an extension or a county agent program out to all 254 counties in Texas, trying to get producers to use the new hybrids. Well, my grandfather, and I know yours too, was one of them that I did it because Daddy did it and Grandpa did it, and it was good enough for them. It's what we're going to do. So this particular agent up in Jack County decided he was going to take it a different approach. So he put together a handful of young boys that were there around Jacksboro and brought them together, and he called them the Corn Club. That was 104 years ago. He says, here's what we're going to do. I want all of you boys to go home to your dads and ask them for a little tiny corner of a field out there. And I want you to go home and I want you to plant these hybrid corns. So these young men went home and talked their dads and let them have just a little bitty space in the field where they put the hybrid corns out there. And then those breeds of corn, when they got up and they were standing up 4 foot taller and had ears 6 inches longer, and the yield was so much, and it was visible, they could see it. Well, that brought about the acceptance of bringing in new species of plant life for increased production. Then later on, and that was the beginning of 4-H, and they called it the Corn Club at first. Later on, they developed a program for girls. At that time, the tomato industry and vegetable industry in Texas was suffering because when you had a crop ready to go, if you exhausted the demand for that product, then the rest of the product is spoiled in the field. And so the county agents started working with the girls. They started the Tomato Club, and the Girls Tomato Club went around teaching them how to can. And they were able to save their entire crop by taking what was not being able to be sold fresh, and they started canning it. And years later, they brought the two together as the 4-H program.
And what do the 4-H's stand for?
Heart, Head, Hand, and Health. All of those are still benchmarks in the Texas 4-H program, and I'm proud to say that we're able, as my particular area, to fund $2.5 million every year to 4-H graduating seniors so that we can get them in college, get them out there, and get them established in some kind of industry where they have an appreciation for the land, the cattle, and the producers.
Now, do folks donate to the 4-H?
Yes, sir, they do. We have endowed scholarships. We put several $1 million a year into state programs. We've got 38 different programs that goes science, engineering, and technology. We're into photography. We're into textiles. We're into the cooking aspect, with food challenge competitions, as well as our livestock, which is still the number one, I guess, recognizable thing that 4-H provides for kiddos. And we've got a program called Junior Master Gardener now, where we've got kids in urban areas that are raising tomatoes in an old tennis shoe in their house.
So you don't have to live on a farm or be in an agricultural environment to be a member of the 4-H and
Absolutely
participate
not.
and learn something about feeding yourself and your family.
Yes, sir. And it's if you just saw the long list of governors, Governor Perry started out in 4-H out in his rural area. I think probably the most important thing that I've watched over the years is the leadership aspect that's drilled into these young people. I talked to the vice president of Monsanto in St. Louis, Missouri, and his name's Carl Casal, and he told me, he said, Jim, I came up through Monsanto, and he's a senior vice president now through their human relations or HR department. And he said when it came to taking applications, he instructed his people, if they've got 4-H or FFA in their application, put them in a separate pile. I want to talk to them first. Because he says, if I've got a young person that has a good work ethic, that is trustworthy and loyal and loves this country, I'll teach him anything else he needs to know.
That's wonderful. So if somebody wanted to donate to the 4-H, how do we do that?
All you have to do is go to www.texas4hfoundation.org. You can give online. You can call me, and I'll come and sit down with you, and I'll twist your arm, Red. I'll get you on the floor until you see what I'm all about and trying to support this fantastic organization.
So what you're doing is trying to prepare young people for a future in agriculture or agriculture-related industries, because it's the number 3 employer in our entire country.
Yes, sir.
And so we need those young people to carry forward, because if we can't feed ourselves, none of the rest of this stuff matters.
Exactly.
Well, Jim, I'm so proud you took the time to come visit with us, and I want to encourage all of you folks to support your local 4-H organization. And if you'd like to donate to the foundation, you guys would love to have the money, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, we'd love
because
it.
that helps you prepare these young people for a future in agriculture. Jim, thank you so much for coming to see us.
Thank you, Red. You're a friend indeed.
You folks stay with us. We'll be right back with more of Cowboy Corner.